I'm Syra. For 5 years, I've been Nail's personal assistant at Reed Enterprises. Nail Reed, the CEO, a man with power, charm, and a reputation that few could touch. And yeah, for most of those years, I was also his secret, his hidden lover. It's complicated. Forbidden, really. We kept it under wraps, pretending everything was strictly business. But deep down, I hoped for more. I convinced myself our relationship could somehow last, until the day Nail dropped the bomb on me. He was getting engaged to someone else. I remember that morning clearly. The clock showed 7:40 a.m., and I was rushing to get ready for an 8:15 meeting. My phone buzzed. It was Nail. "Syra, the meeting's at 8:15 sharp. Don't be late." That was normal. Then his voice softened, almost hesitant. "If I'm getting engaged, this needs to end." I froze. 5 years of stolen moments, whispered promises, and secret nights, all reduced to a sentence. My heart pounded, but I forced my voice to stay steady. "How do you want to end this? I'm still your assistant. That won't change." There was a long pause. Then he said, "Business first, personal second." I tried to hide the pain behind professionalism, but inside I was breaking. For years I'd juggled 2 lives, the loyal assistant by day and the woman who loved him by night. Now, the rumors started swirling. Whispers in the corridors, smirks when I passed by. Naila was engaged to Juliana Lee, the heiress of a powerful business family, the city's new power couple. And me? Just the secretary with bruises on her neck and no place at the table. One afternoon, a few coworkers made sure I heard. "Look at those marks on Syra's neck," one sneered. "She probably just got out of Nail's bed this morning." I clenched my fists but said nothing. I was still a professional. Then came the orders, or rather, the command, to attend a dinner with Lewis Hale, a businessman known for his ruthless tactics. Nail insisted I handle it. "Just be charming," he said. Lewis was dangerous, a man who used women and discarded them. That night I smiled through his veiled threats and felt the weight of my role sinking deeper. A spilled drink, a ruined shirt. He used those moments to try to control me, but I was more than that. I had to be. Back in the office, things got colder between Naila and me. I asked him one day, "What am I to you now?" He didn't look me in the eye. "Syra, you're not quitting, right? The company depends on you." But I was done. Done being the secret. Done being the other woman. I told him I'd stay, but only as his assistant, nothing more. The next few weeks were a blur. Final projects, whispered gossip, and the painful truth that my chapter in Nail's life was closing. The birthday and the breaking point. All right, Reddit. This part still stings every time I think about it. It was my birthday. You'd think that would be a day to feel special, right? Instead, it felt like a reminder of everything I was losing. Nail used to celebrate with me every year. Little surprises, small dinners, and sometimes just a quiet moment where I'd forget all the chaos. But this year was different. The office buzzed with whispers. Everyone knew about Juliana Lee, Naila's fiancé, and I was just the ghost of a past nobody wanted to face. That morning, I sat at my desk, staring at an unopened envelope. It was from Nail. I hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a necklace. Not just any necklace, the kind you see in movies, with a brilliant sapphire pendant surrounded by tiny diamonds. The note read, "For Syra, happy birthday. Always grateful for you." I put it on immediately. It was stunning, but also a cruel reminder. Was this supposed to be a consolation prize? A way to say thanks but keep me at arm's length? Later that day, Juliana herself came to the office. She was graceful, poised, and smiled like she had the world in her hands. I'd met her once before, in passing, but this time she stopped by my desk. "Syra, right? I've heard a lot about you. I want you to know I appreciate everything you've done for Naila. It can't have been easy." I blinked. Was she being sincere, or was this another way to remind me that I didn't belong? "I appreciate that," I said cautiously. Juliana continued, "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask. I want us to get along." I forced a smile, but inside I was torn. I wanted to warn her about Naila, about how messy this all was, but that would only make me seem bitter. Later that evening, I was invited to a private dinner celebrating Juliana and Naila's upcoming wedding. It felt surreal being in the same room with them, pretending everything was fine. The staff whispered behind my back, "Why's Syra even here?" She should know her place. I wore the necklace Naila had given me. It felt heavy around my neck, like a chain I couldn't break free from. As the night went on, Naila barely looked my way. He was charming, attentive to Juliana, laughing and sharing plans for their future. And me? I was the invisible woman everyone thought was over the hill. I wanted to scream, to ask him why he let it come to this, but instead, I sat quiet, nursing my drink. After the dinner, I confronted Nail privately. "Why invite me if this is all just a show?" I asked, voice shaking. He looked at me, tired and conflicted. "Because, Sierra, you're important to me. But this is how it has to be." I laughed bitterly. "Important? You call this important? I'm the secret, the shadow, the mistake you don't want anyone to see." He didn't have an answer. That night I went home alone, clutching the necklace, and wondering if I'd ever truly mattered to him, or if I was just a chapter he was ready to close. After that birthday dinner, things at the office got tense, like walking on eggshells, but every step felt like it could shatter everything. Niall was distant, almost cold, like he was trying to erase me from his life. But work didn't stop, and neither did I. I was still the one managing his calendar, his meetings, and cleaning up after his messes. One morning, as I was sorting through some files, I overheard some colleagues gossiping. "Did you see how cold Nayla was to Syra lately?" one whispered. "Yeah. With that engagement announcement, she's basically invisible now." I bit my tongue, but the sting was real. Later, during a crucial meeting with an important client, Nayla suddenly announced he'd be stepping back from a deal. Instead, he handed the responsibility to me. Everyone in the room blinked. "You want her to lead this?" one of the clients asked, surprised. Nail nodded. "Syra's been handling everything behind the scenes. She knows this project inside out." For a brief moment, I felt that old spark, the feeling of being trusted and valuable. But then came the reminder. I was just his assistant, not his partner, not his equal. After the meeting, as we walked back to the office, I tried to ask Niley about us. "Why are you pushing me forward professionally but shutting me out personally?" I asked quietly. He sighed, avoiding my gaze. "It's complicated, Syra. You know how it is with Juliana now." I nodded, understanding but still heartbroken. "Just focus on the work. That's all I can ask for." But work wasn't enough anymore. That afternoon, I was called into Lewis's office. Lewis was the company's shady investor, the kind of guy who made you nervous just by standing too close. "Sierra, you're handling things well," he said, eyeing me like a prize. "But you need to remember your place." My stomach churned. I knew what he meant. "I'm here to work," I said firmly, "not to be anyone's pawn." He laughed, dark and cold. "You'll learn, sweetheart. Everyone does." That night, I sat alone in my apartment, replaying everything in my head. Nail's coldness, the whispers, Lewis's threats. Was this what I'd become? Just a secretary caught in a game way bigger than me? Then I made a decision. If Nail was going to push me aside, I'd stop being his secret. If Lewis was going to threaten me, I'd find a way to fight back. And if the company was going to treat me like a disposable pawn, I'd take control of the board. I was done being the shadow. It was time to be the storm. So after everything with Louis and Nail's coldness, I decided it was time to stop playing by their rules. I was tired of being the invisible assistant, the side note, the secret no one wanted to admit. The next morning, I showed up at the office early, ready to dive into work like always. But this time, something had shifted inside me. I wasn't just going to take orders, I was going to make moves that counted. My first target? Lewis. He had been making me uncomfortable for months now, and I wasn't about to let him think I was his plaything. I started digging quietly into his background, quietly asking around, connecting dots. Turns out Louis had a messy history with shady deals, fraud accusations, and even a few lawsuits that were never publicized. I compiled everything, dates, documents, testimonies, all neatly organized. When I showed the files to Naily, his reaction surprised me. "Syra, how did you find all this?" he asked, eyebrows raised. "I'm not your secretary anymore. I'm done being your secret," I said flatly. He looked conflicted but nodded. "Good work. This could finally put Lewis in his place." That night, the board meeting was electric. Lewis was called out publicly, with evidence. His usual smug smile faded, replaced by cold fury. Niall looked over at me with a grateful but complicated expression. For the first time in a long time, I saw respect in his eyes. But just when I thought things might get easier, Juliana walked into the office the next day, Niall's fiancée. The tension was immediate. She was the perfect image of wealth and status. Every inch the woman expected to be the boss's wife. She didn't hide her disdain for me, and honestly, I wasn't surprised. The whispers started again, about how a simple secretary could never belong in their world. But I wasn't going to back down. Instead, I threw myself even harder into work, proving I was indispensable. I started taking initiative, leading projects, and even voicing ideas in meetings. Slowly, the staff began to notice that Syra was no longer just Nail's assistant. One afternoon, I caught Juliana watching me during a presentation. Our eyes met, and she smirked. That smirk told me she wanted a fight. And you know what? I was ready. That night, I sat down and wrote a message to my brother, the one person I could trust outside this chaotic world. I told him everything, about Niall, the engagement, Louis, and my plan to take control of my own destiny. His reply came almost instantly. "I'm here for you, Syra. Whatever you need." That gave me strength, because no matter what anyone said, I was more than just a secretary. I was a woman who knew her worth. And this was only the beginning of my story. Buckle up, because things just got a whole lot messier. So, the rumor mill was buzzing. Nail Grayson, the head of Grayson Enterprises, was officially getting engaged to Juliana Lee. Juliana, the Lee heiress, was basically business royalty. When she arrived, Niall was right there to greet her, all smiles and charm. They looked perfect, like a power couple straight out of a magazine. And me? Well, I was the one they whispered about in the hallways. The secretary who's been the boss's hidden flame for 5 years, suddenly becoming the invisible woman overnight. That hurt. More than I thought it would. The office was practically electric with gossip. People kept sneaking glances, talking about how Juliana was the real future Mrs. Grayson. Meanwhile, I was stuck trying to focus on work while swallowing this bitter pill. I noticed Juliana making little digs, thinly veiled barbs about me being just the assistant. She even had the nerve to flaunt a necklace, a beautiful sapphire pendant I recognized. Turns out Nyla had gifted it to her as an engagement present. Ouch. But here's the kicker. I found out that Juliana wasn't just some trophy fiancé. She was sharp, savvy, and ruthless when it came to business. She knew how to play the game, and she was playing it to win. One afternoon, as I was walking down the hall, I overheard Juliana talking with some of her friends, talking about how people like me don't belong in Naylee's world. It stung. It pissed me off. But instead of crying over spilled tea, I decided I'd fight fire with fire. I was done being the office secret no one wanted to admit. I started pushing boundaries, volunteering for bigger projects, showing up early, leaving late, proving to everyone that Syra was more than her title. Nail? Well, he was distant, cold even. The spark that once existed between us was gone. I tried to get answers, but he'd just brush me off with vague excuses. One day, I confronted him. "Nail, what are we? What is this?" I asked, my voice barely hiding the hurt. He looked away. "Syra, it's over. Juliana and I, we're moving forward." "Moving forward? And what about me? Was I just a game to you?" I pressed. He didn't answer. That was the moment I realized I needed to stop waiting for Nayla to make up his mind. I needed to take control of my own life. That night, I sat down and made a decision. No more playing the forgotten assistant. No more hiding in the shadows. It was time for Syra to rise. Remember how I said things were getting messy? They got worse. Nail called me into his office late afternoon with that same unreadable expression he'd worn for weeks now. His voice was calm, professional even. "Syra, I need you to accompany me to a business dinner tonight. It's with Lewis Carter." I blinked. Lewis Carter? The name alone made my skin crawl. Everyone in the industry knew the rumors. Lewis was powerful, slimy, and ruthless, especially toward women. "Sir," I said slowly, "you never send female staff to dinners with him." "Why me?" Nail didn't even blink. "You're the only one I trust to handle him." That line would have meant something to me before. Now? It sounded like a lazy excuse. Still, I didn't say no. I should have. But deep down, some part of me still wanted to show him I was irreplaceable. So I went. Louis was exactly how I expected. Sleazy grin, cheap cologne, and eyes that undressed you before he even shook your hand. The moment I walked into that private dining room, he grinned like he'd just unwrapped a present. "Nail," he boomed, clapping him on the back. "And you must be Miss Syra. Syra Hale," I said, keeping my voice steady. "A pleasure," he said, gesturing to the seat right next to his. "Come sit, gorgeous." Nail just nodded like it was no big deal. Dinner was uncomfortable. Lewis kept leaning in too close, brushing his hand against mine every chance he got. He made comments that Nyla ignored, sipping his wine as if this was just another night. Then it got worse. At one point, Lewis accidentally spilled red wine down his shirt and turned to me with a wink. "Why don't you help me change? The bathroom's just over there." I shot Naily a look, hoping he'd shut it down. Instead, he said flatly, "Go with him, Syra. Handle it. You're good at this." I wanted to scream, but I was in too deep. My heart was thudding, anger bubbling just under the surface. I went with Lewis, but I kept my distance the whole way to the door of the restroom. Just as he tried to corner me, I turned around and said, voice ice cold, "Touch me, and you lose more than your shirt." He laughed, but I could tell it rattled him. Maybe he thought I'd be the quiet, obedient assistant. He was wrong. I walked out of that room and back to the table, sat down and pretended nothing had happened. That's what Nayle wanted, right? A professional? As the dinner wrapped up, Lewis shook Nayle's hand and gave me one last lingering look. "She's a firecracker," he said. "You're lucky." Nayle just gave a thin smile. "Yes, I know." That was the moment I realized. He did know. He knew exactly what he was doing, sending me in there like a pawn to charm a snake, and he didn't care. As we left the restaurant, I finally snapped, "Was that some kind of test, Nayle? Or just punishment?" He didn't answer, just unlocked the car. I got in, silent, seething. I knew I couldn't keep doing this. I was smarter than this, stronger than this. Nayle Grayson had once seen me as more than a secretary. But now? Now he just saw me as a disposable piece on his business chessboard. But here's the thing about pawns. They can reach the other side and become queens. Game on.